Ashes, smoke, and the scent of grilled meat. World had ended quietly. There were no nuclear bombs, no heroic last stands, and no grand speeches from world leaders, just silence. One day, people were shopping, working, laughing, and the next day, the skies turned black, and they were all gone. It started with the sky changing color. A strange red mist covered the earth, and then came the ships, massive and glowing. Like floating cities in the clouds, aliens had arrived. No one knew where they came from. They didn't speak. They didn't explain. They simply took over. Buildings collapsed. Roads cracked. Electricity vanished. Satellites fell. Everything humans had built for hundreds of years was erased in just a few weeks. Some tried to run. Some tried to fight. None survived. Now, 1 year later, Earth was quiet and broken. Dead trees stood like skeletons. Oceans no longer moved. Dust covered the cities. And in the middle of a ruined Tokyo street, surrounded by burned cars and broken buildings, stood something strange, something that didn't belong in the world. Of death and silence, a food stall. Old, rusty, and patched together with metal sheets and old solar panels, the stall still stood. Smoke rose from its chimney. Lights flickered on its sides. And behind the counter stood a man in his early 30s, wearing an apron with oil stains and a tired face. His name was Riku Tanaka. He was the last cook on Earth. He didn't know why he was still alive. He didn't know how his small stall still worked. The aliens had destroyed everything else, but somehow they had left his cart alone. Maybe they didn't care. Maybe they didn't even notice him. Every morning, Riku woke up in the back of his food stall, stretched his arms, and lit the grill. He cooked as if the world hadn't ended. He seasoned meat. He sliced vegetables. He fried eggs, boiled noodles, and made broth. The smell of his food drifted through the air, smoke, spice, and something comforting. He cooked for no one, but cooking was all he knew. Before the world ended, he had a small food business that served construction workers, taxi drivers, and office employees. Simple food, honest food. His father had taught him to cook, and his grandmother had taught his father. So, even when the world died, Riku continued the tradition. That morning, like every other, he grilled some marinated beef and poured hot miso soup into a chipped ceramic bowl. He wiped the counter, looked at the empty chairs, and said quietly, "Today's special ginger pork with pickled radish. Not bad, right?" Of course, no one answered. Or so he thought. A shadow moved. Riku froze. His hand gripped the metal tongs tightly. He looked up and his heart nearly stopped. Something was standing across the street. It was tall, maybe 7 feet. Its skin was silver blue, glowing faintly under the sunless sky. It had long, elegant limbs and armor that shimmered like liquid metal, and its eyes were bright gold. It wasn't just a soldier. It was a queen, one of the alien leaders. Riku had heard whisper stories from dying radios before the signals went dead. Alien empires, royal houses, queens who ruled with thought, not words. He should have run. He should have hidden. But Riku didn't move. The alien queen stepped forward. Slowly, her guards remained behind. Her movements were graceful, but heavy, like each step carried power. She stopped in front of the food stall, tilted her head, and sniffed the air. Riku couldn't breathe. Was this how he died? Burned by a ray weapon for daring to cook pork on alien-controlled land? The queen raised a hand. Her voice came not from her mouth, but from somewhere inside Riku's head. Dissent. "What is it?" Riku blinked. Pork. With ginger. Want some?" She didn't answer. She simply sat down on the dusty stool in front of the counter. Riku, unsure what else to do, served her a hot bowl. The broth steamed in the cold air. The meat was tender, the radish sharp and clean. He placed it in front of her gently, hands shaking. The queen stared at the bowl. Then she picked up the wooden chopsticks Riku offered. Her fingers, long and clawed, moved with strange elegance. She took one bite, and everything changed. Her eyes widened. She took another bite, then another. Then, without warning, her glowing golden eyes filled with tears. She covered her mouth. Her body shook, not from pain, but from something else, something deep and powerful, a memory, perhaps, a feeling long forgotten. This, she whispered inside his mind, tastes like home. And with that, the queen of a distant empire, one who had conquered dozens of planets, bowed her head before a food stall in the ruins of Tokyo. Behind her, 2 more alien figures arrived, then 5, then 10, all queens. all rulers of their own worlds, and all of them wanted a bite. The news spread faster than anyone could have imagined. Not by radio, not by internet, those were gone long ago. The airwaves were silent, but the stars had their own way of speaking. Across deep space, through pulses of light and invisible frequencies, the word passed from one empire to the next: the human cook has returned. It was not a message of war. It wasn't even understood by most translators. It carried something far more dangerous: curiosity. Within days, royal shuttles began entering Earth's orbit, glowing with ancient sigils and powered by alien technology the size of cities. One by one, they landed, not to conquer, not to destroy, but to eat. And Riku Tanaka, the last human cook on Earth, didn't even know what was coming. It started early one morning. A soft hum filled the sky above Tokyo's ruins. Riku stood at his food stall, wiping his hands on his apron as the coals began to warm. The first rays of orange light cut through the dusty clouds, and the scent of marinated chicken skin sizzled into the cold air. He hummed an old cooking tune his grandmother used to sing. That was when the sky broke open. A massive ship's leak and shaped like a blade descended quietly. No smoke, no fire. The ground barely trembled. Its door opened like a petal, and from within stepped another queen. Her skin was deep crimson. Her eyes were silver like mirrors. Jewels floated around her head like a crown made of stars. She was not like the first queen. She was younger, prouder, and far more dangerous. She said nothing. She simply walked to the stall, stared at the chalkboard menu, and said aloud, "Your meat sandwich." The one that made Thalrina cry. Riku hesitated. That would be the ginger pork. Coming right up. He cooked carefully. The bread was old, but toasted well. The pork, marinated overnight in soy and sugar, was grilled to perfection. He topped it with pickled daikon, a splash of sesame oil, and a hint of chili. When he handed it to her, he bowed slightly, not because she was a queen, but because that's how he always served food. She took one bite. Her jaw stopped moving. Her eyes narrowed. She looked at him as if he had just told her a secret, but before she could speak, another ship landed. This one was sharp and gold, shaped like a hawk. Out stepped Queen Lura of the ice fields, her breath forming frost in the air as she walked. Her guards carried frozen spears and armor made from living crystal. She came for the sandwich. "I demand to be served before the fire-skinned one," she declared coldly. "She arrived first," Riku said, keeping his tone neutral. "But I can make more. I will not wait in line," Lura snapped. "That's how a food stall works," Riku replied, folding his arms. Queen Zenrasha, the Crimson One, smirked. "Seems like you're not so royal anymore, Lura." And that was all it took. In the blink of an eye, weapons were drawn. The air hissed. Energy blades met crystal. One of the guards leapt forward, and in a flash of white light, half the food stall was shattered. Plates flew, oil spilled. The grill sparked. Smoke filled the ruins. Riku dived behind the counter. His food, his stall. He hadn't fought aliens for a year just to lose everything in a royal temper tantrum. "Stop," he shouted. But the queens didn't stop. They weren't just fighting over food, they were fighting for pride in their worlds. Royalty did not wait. They ruled, commanded, destroyed. But here, on Earth, all that power meant nothing to Rika's kitchen. In 10 minutes, they had leveled an entire city block. Satellite dishes from the fallen buildings tumbled. A small alien scout ship, caught in the crossfire, exploded in the air. Rubble rained from the sky, and still, the queens fought until something unexpected happened. The first queen returned, Thalrina. She landed silently, stepping from her ship with grace and rage in her glowing golden eyes. She walked past the guards, past the warriors, and stood between them. Then she turned to Riku, who was trying to restart his broken grill with shaky hands. "Is your food ready?" she asked softly. "I saved the last sandwich," Riku said, holding up a slightly squashed, still warm wrap. She took it, bowed, and took one bite. The air shifted. The fighting stopped. Even the wind seemed to pause. Queen Zenrasha and Queen Lura slowly lowered their weapons and looked at her. "Tell them," Riku whispered. Thalrina turned, her voice now steady and calm. "This taste is not just flavor. It holds memory, warmth, soul. This cook is not a threat to your thrones. He is a threat to your coldness." The other queens looked at Riku differently now. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't even important in their political games. But somehow, His food was dot and far beyond Earth, in a place darker than any queen's throne room. Someone else had noticed. A being with no face, a voice that echoed in space, and it whispered, "The cook must be silenced." But 4 more queens remembered what they lost. The dust from the queen's battle still floated in the air, mixing with the scent of roasted soy and grilled onions. Riku sat on a broken milk crate behind what was left of his food stall, brushing ash off a half-burnt cutting board. His apron was torn, his grill dented, but his hands never stopped working. He didn't understand any of it. Why were queens from across galaxies crying over miso broth and pork sandwiches? Why had 2 of them nearly destroyed each other for the last piece of tofu bun? And now why had Queen Thalrina told him, with tears in her glowing eyes, that his food tasted like home, when Earth was the only planet he'd ever known? That word kept spinning in his head. Home for him had always been Tokyo, narrow streets, vending machines that played jingles, the quiet hum of ramen stalls, the laughter of tired office workers at midnight. But what did home mean for a 7-foot alien queen who ruled moons of ice and fire? That night, while the queens rested in their royal shuttles nearby, Riku lit a single candle inside his stall and opened a small tin box his father had left him before he died. The tin smelled faintly of old tea. Inside was a folded letter, aged yellow, with unfamiliar symbols scribbled in careful lines. Beneath the letter was something stranger, a metal badge etched with Japanese characters and something else, alien glyphs. Riku's brow furrowed. He had seen those glyphs before on the armor of the queens. He walked to Queen Thalrina's ship. It shimmered like a sleeping creature under the moonless sky. The guard stepped aside silently. The queens no longer saw him as just a cook. No, now he was something else, a mystery wrapped in steam and soy sauce. Inside, Thalrina sat on a chair shaped like a throne, but she looked tired, not physically, emotionally, like the weight of countless stars pressed on her shoulders. Riku didn't bow this time. He simply handed her the letter. "Do you recognize this language?" he asked quietly. The queen's eyes widened. Her fingers trembled as she touched the paper. This is the old tongue of the travelers," she said. "It hasn't been spoken for 5,000 years. Riku's voice cracked. "It's my father's handwriting, but he never left Earth." Thalrina leaned forward. "Then your blood is not only from this world." She held up the badge, this symbol. This was once worn by the Peaceburn. They were a guild of travelers, cooks, farmers, healers, humans who spread unity across the stars before the Great Silence. "The Great Silence?" Riku asked. She nodded slowly. "Long ago, before Earth fell into isolation, your kind was more than warriors or dreamers. Your ancestors fed kings and queens from 1,000 worlds. Their food carried emotion, memory, peace, but something happened. They vanished. Their worlds forgot, and now you have awakened it again." Riku stumbled backward, mind spinning. His family, his recipes, they weren't just cultural, they were cosmic. The smell of miso and meat, the feel of warm rice in cold hands. These were not just food, they were keys. They opened locked memories buried deep in alien hearts. And now, someone was afraid of what those memories could do. That night, far above Earth, inside a hollow black moon orbiting in silence, a being with no face watched the events unfold through 1,000 glass eyes. Its body was a swirling storm of shadows and wires. It spoke to no one, yet its voice echoed across the network of stars. The Peaceburn lives, the flavors return, the feelings grow. He must not continue. Suddenly, a dark command was sent through the void, silent, perfect, and deadly. A ship, cloaked in darkness, separated from the moon and headed for Earth. Inside it, a silent assassin with one goal: erase the cook, erase the memory, erase the peace. Back on Earth, Riku stood outside, holding the letter to his chest. He looked up at the alien ships above the broken city. He saw queens from rival galaxies sharing food on makeshift stools, smiling over bowls of soup. He didn't know who he truly was yet, but he knew this: if his food could make even more queens laugh again. He wasn't just cooking, he was healing, and someone out there was scared of that. The morning sun didn't rise that day. In the sky above Earth, royal starships floated like silver whales, casting shadows over the ruins of Tokyo. Light from their hulls flickered across broken rooftops and empty roads. Where once stood towers of glass and steel, now only bones of buildings remained. But in the middle of this silence, smoke rose. It came from a patched-up grill, sizzling softly, the smell of garlic butter Caramelized onions and toasted sesame buns drifted into the cold air. Riku Tanaka stood behind the counter of his food stall, wearing his stained apron with quiet pride. His face was tired, his eyes red from lack of sleep, but his hands moved like poetry. He flipped a patty, layered it with seaweed jam and sweet egg, and placed it inside a soft bun. He looked up and nodded. Order for Queen Zenrasha, the alien queen, tall and red-skinned with eyes like lava, stepped forward through a line of royal guards. She didn't bow. Queens didn't bow. But she did smile, just a little. As she reached out to take the burger, a golden drone floated down from the sky. It carried a message sealed in a glowing crystal, marked with a symbol Riku hadn't seen. Before 3 stars burning in a circle of thorns, Zenrasha caught it midair. Her smile vanished. "What is it?" Riku asked, still holding a tray of buns. She looked at him for a long moment, then said, "An invitation, or perhaps a trap." That evening, Queen Zenrasha and Queen Thalrina stood beside Riku as a royal transport ship descended from the sky. The ship bore no nation's flag, no queen's sigil. It was something else entirely, the Unity Crest. It belonged to the Celestial Council, the highest order among the known galaxies. They ruled from shadows, moved planets with politics, and rarely revealed their true faces. If they had noticed Riku, something serious was happening. He was escorted into the ship, past shimmering halls and silent armored guards, until he entered a chamber that looked nothing like a throne room. Instead, it was a dining hall with marble floors, black glass windows, and a single table at the center. And at the head of that table sat High Lady Virel, an alien of silver and shadow, her face smooth like a mask, eyes glowing with unreadable light. "Riku Tanaka," she said. Her voice was soft but carried through the chamber like a wave. "You have done what no empire has. You made our queens put down their blades. You made them remember feelings they tried to forget. Do you know what that means?" "I'm not sure I do," Riku replied. "I just make food." "No," she said, leaning forward. "You bring balance. Through flavor, through scent, through memory. Our ancestors knew of this. We thought it was myth. You are the rebirth of a peace-burn line." She raised a hand. A servant brought a box made of crystal and light. It opened slowly to reveal a crown, carved with ancient human designs, gold twisted, with iron, marked with both Earth's languages and alien runes. "Take it," Virel said. "Become the High Mediator, a seat on the Celestial Council. You will not only feed us, you will guide our future." Riku stared at the crown. The room was silent. Every queen leaned in, and Riku did something no one expected. He chuckled. "I appreciate it," he said quietly. "But I think I'll pass." Virel's fingers twitched. "Pass on power. On purpose?" "I already have a purpose," Riku said. "There's a line forming every morning at my stall. Queens, warriors, travelers all coming not for orders, but for a meal. That's where I belong. Not in a throne room, but behind a grill." The queens looked at each other in silence. Virel narrowed her eyes. "Do you understand what you are? Refusing, you could rewrite history." "I'm rewriting it already," Riku said, calmly, "one bowl at a time." And with that, he turned and walked out. No guard stopped him. No ships fired. No threats followed. Because in that moment, even the most powerful rulers in the galaxy saw something they could not control. A man who could not be bought. A cook who didn't crave gold or galaxies, just a clean grill and hungry hearts. That night, Riku returned to his stall. He found it had been cleaned, rebuilt, repaired. Alien engineers had fixed the lights. The stools were polished. A new sign floated above it. "Galactic Peace Kitchen, run by Riku." But he crossed it out and wrote in chalk underneath. Just Riku's, and far away, in deep space. The assassin ship crept closer. No noise. No light. Just darkness inside. The shadowy figure read his final instructions. Target, the human cook. Mission, silence the taste of memory. Do not fail. The stars above Earth twinkled coldly that night, indifferent to peace or war, joy or sorrow. The alien queens had returned to their ships, their disputes quiet for now. Riku's food stall, once bent and broken, now stood proud again, lit by soft lights powered by salvaged alien cores, surrounded by customers from other galaxies. Peace had settled in like a fragile blanket, but peace is never left alone for long. On the 4th day since Riku refused the throne, a stranger arrived. No ship had landed, no noise had marked an arrival. She simply appeared, walking slowly down the cracked street of Tokyo's ruins, boots silent on stone. Cloak long and gray, hood covering her face. Her presence was so still, so calm, that even the queen's guards didn't notice her until she reached the counter. Riku was stirring broth in a deep pot, humming quietly. The scent of garlic, seaweed, and star anise swirled into the cold night. The stranger sat down on a rusted stool. "What'll it be?" Riku asked without looking up. "Your best soup," she said. Her voice was smooth, emotionless. "Something hot, something ancient." He smiled. Coming right up, he ladled out the broth, filled it with noodles, soft-boiled eggs, and slices of seasoned meat, a sprinkle of herbs, a dash of chili oil. He placed it gently in front of her with a pair of bamboo chopsticks. "Enjoy." She didn't eat right away. She stared at the bowl for a full minute, unmoving. Then she took a sip. Steam curled around her mask. Then a tear fell, but it wasn't from memory like the others. It was from heat. "Too spicy?" Riku asked gently. She set the bowl down slowly and stood with one swift motion. She threw off the cloak. Gasps came from every direction. Under the robe was a bodysuit woven from shadow steel. Her arms were inked with silent kill marks. Her face, half covered in a mask of dull chrome, bore no emotion, only one glowing red eye. The guards moved instantly. To late, with a flick of her hand, she drew a curved blade glowing with poison light. The nearest alien soldier fell to the ground before he could scream. Another guard leapt toward her and vanished in a flash of darkness. The other queens stood. Weapons shimmered, shields activated. And Riku, heart pounding, eyes wide, stood frozen behind the counter. She turned to him. "I was told to silence you," she said softly. "They believe your food is dangerous, that it revives something that must remain dead." Riku took a step back. "I don't understand." "You do," she said, raising the blade. "You are peace burn. That cannot be allowed." The blade came down fast, but so did a pot of boiling soup. With reflexes born not of combat, but of cooking, Riku hurled the pot at her mid-swing. The broth splashed across her armor, sizzling and blinding her eye. She screamed, a cold mechanical sound, and stumbled back. Guards tackled her, alien warriors pinning her down with energy cords and binding chains. She twisted, kicked, sliced, but finally, she was still, panting. Riku leaned on the counter, hands shaking. The queens gathered around the captured assassin. Zenrasha stepped forward and removed the metal mask. What they saw underneath made even the most hardened impresses blink. She was human, or almost human. Her eyes had been replaced, her skin reinforced with microwires, her voice digitally enhanced, but the features beneath the steel were unmistakable. "She's one of us," Riku whispered. Thalrina turned to him. "No, she is one of them, the Shadow Federation. They harvest remnants of lost human colonies and use them to erase memory, because feelings weaken control." The assassin, now chained to the ground, looked up at Riku. "I was born in a place with no sky," she said. "No smell, no taste. But one day, an old woman told me stories of earth, of noodles, and steam, and family around a table. I thought she was insane." She closed her eyes. "Then I tasted your soup. For 1 second, I remembered something that never happened. I saw a mother, a wooden spoon, a red table. A tear fell from her human eye. You brought it back." Riku stepped closer. "I didn't bring it back. It was already inside you." He knelt down and placed a warm rice ball in her hand. "Eat." Not as an assassin, as someone who deserves more. And in silence, she ate. The queens watched, silent, moved. Riku stood again, tired, but certain. "If someone wants to silence the past," he said, turning to them, "then the past is what we need to protect most." That night, the food stall glowed brighter than ever before. The queens shared stories. The assassin, once an enemy, now sat on a stool, eating quietly and far above Earth. In a place darker than space itself, the Shadow Federation watched, with growing fear, because they knew the cook had survived, the food had spoken, and the galaxy was waking up. The stars were quiet, but the ground beneath Earth whispered a memory long buried. It had been weeks since the assassin sat down to eat, weeks since she dropped her blade and picked up a spoon. She hadn't said much after that, not about her past, not about who gave the order, but she returned every night silent, still, sitting at the end of the stall, always ordering the same bowl of soup. Riku didn't ask questions. He just cooked. Each day, the food stall grew busier, Royals from across star systems landed quietly in broken parking lots. Some disguised themselves, hiding crowns beneath cloaks. They came not to conquer but to remember, to taste something they didn't know they lost. And as Riku's hand served bowls to warlords and emperors, he began to change. He was dreaming more often. He saw visions clear as memory of places he had never been. A stone kitchen under twin moons, a young woman grinding spice in silence, a silver ladle stirring blue soup. He heard laughter in a language he didn't speak, but somehow understood. He tried to ignore it until the recipe box returned. It appeared one morning on the counter, though no one had placed it there. The same wooden box his father once kept beneath the rice sacks. Riku remembered hiding it as a child, thinking it was boring. But now, the box seemed to breathe with light. Inside was a single recipe card, written in a language both alien and Japanese. It listed only 4 ingredients. 3 were known: salt, ginger, broth. The 4th was something else entirely, shirikowa, flower of memory. Riku had never heard of it. None of the queens recognized the word either, except Thalrina. She was still the moment she read it. This flower, she said quietly, was believed to be a myth. They say it grows only in places where great emotion lingers, places where the stars themselves wept. Riku frowned. Where would that be? Thalrina turned her eyes west and whispered, the crater. The next morning, they traveled by airskiff over dead mountains and ruined valleys, the sky dim and silent. The queens did not follow. This was a journey meant for one cook and one seeker of forgotten things. They landed in a place once known as Shizuoka Prefecture, now a scorched wasteland of glass and dust. At the center lay the crater, a giant bowl carved into the earth decades ago, the result of a failed alien weapon test. Nothing grew there. No birds flew overhead. Even wind avoided the place. Riku stepped down from the ship, boots crunching on ash. The air buzzed faintly. Something was wrong, but also alive. They walked toward the center, the ground cracking beneath each step. And there, at the very heart of the crater, surrounded by silent ruins and scorched stone, it bloomed. A single flower. It glowed faintly with blue-white petals, curled like paper, soft as breath. It grew from a cracking stone, untouched by fire, weather, or time. The moment Riku saw it, something inside him clicked. His hands trembled. He reached out, touched the petals. And the universe exploded in his mind. He wasn't standing in the crater anymore. He was back in the kitchen, but not his. A kitchen under alien stars, with metal walls and warm ovens. He was someone else, stirring soup, smiling at a crowd of children not from Earth. They had scales, feathers, horns, but they were laughing, eating together. This was no dream. It was a memory passed down not by blood but by flavor. When Riku came back to himself, his face was wet with tears. He looked at Thalrina. This is it. This is why they fear the food. Thalrina nodded. The flower connects more than taste. It connects soul. The first Peacebring used it to unite enemies without war. Riku gently cut the flower from its stem. It folded into his palm like a promise. As they walked back to the ship, the ground behind them healed. The crater, once a scar, began to grow small green shoots. The silence faded. The wind returned. Earth, too, was remembering. But in the blackness between stars, someone else remembered as well. The Shadow Federation. They watched from their fortress. Moon, their holograms flickering with rage. Their agents had failed. The assassin had switched sides. The flower had bloomed. They had no more time to wait. A fleet of 37 dread ships uncloaked and turned toward Earth. Their purpose was clear. No more queens. No more flavors. No more cook. Back on Earth, Riku stood in his stall, flower in hand, pot already boiling. Time to cook, he whispered. They came from every corner of the starships, blacker than night, shaped like claws and teeth. 37 dread ships, each the size of a floating city, slowly surrounded Earth like wolves around a wounded deer. No flags, no names, only one. Purpose, silenced the cook. In the food stall at the center of ruined Tokyo, Riku didn't panic. He stood still in the quiet morning, his hands moving over the chopping board as if the sky wasn't falling. A pot simmered behind him, filled with warm broth. Thin slices of radish floated inside, gently swaying like lily pads. The shirikowa flower, glowing faintly with blue light, rested on the edge of the tray beside him. The queen stood nearby, forming a silent circle around the stall. Thalrina, Zenrasha, Lura of the ice fields, and many others. Even the assassin-turned-patron now stood guard, blade in hand, eyes scanning the sky. They had been enemies once. Now, they were sisters of memory united not by war, but by taste. Above them, warnings blared from orbit. Shadow Federation fleet has entered the atmosphere. No diplomatic channel open. Weapons fully charged. Attack predicted in T-8 minutes. And still, Riku cooked. He boiled noodles. He crushed ginger. He roasted garlic until it sang in the pan. The final dish would not be complex, it would be honest, simple, and powerful. Because this meal was not meant to feed Dot, it was meant to remind. He reached for the shirakoa flower, now glowing brighter than before, as he dropped the petals into the broth. A soft golden vapor curled upward. The smell was unlike anything the queens had ever known. Even they, who had tasted every cuisine from every system, stepped back with tears in their eyes. It smells like, the arena paused, voice cracking, my mother's hearth on the day of my first coronation. Zenrasha fell to her knees. It smells like peace, Lura whispered. It smells like before I was ever queen, before I learned war. And above them, the sky changed. The lead dreadship began charging its central weapon. A giant beam of silent light gathered at the core. One strike would be enough to turn Earth to ash. Riku turned to his audience, not just the queens, but now the entire planet, watching through revived alien satellites. Even ships orbiting other worlds tuned in. What they saw was not a soldier or a prophet. They saw a man wearing an apron, holding a bowl of soup with shaking hands. Riku stepped outside the food stall, placed the bowl on the highest point of the stall's counter, and whispered, "For those who forgot, for those who remember, and for those who never knew, this is for you." Then he lit a signal torch beside the bowl, one that sent the scent across. The sky dotted traveled on light waves, through vacuum, through shield, into the dread ship's dot, and inside those ships, something impossible happened. The soldiers stopped. The command officers trembled. Even the highest minds of the Shadow Federation, creatures made of code, metal, and cold, froze as the scent reached their mechanical senses, because deep in their code, buried in the dark corners of their creation, there was human memory. Their ancestors had once eaten from bowls like this, felt warmth on their lips, heard laughter. Dot held hands. They had forgotten, but now they remembered. The light at the core of the weapon flickered. Dot dimmed. Dot and then vanished. One by one, the dread ships powered down. Like beasts realizing they had returned to the place they were born, they drifted silently above Earth, no longer invaders, just lost children returning home. Back on the ground, the queens dropped their weapons. The assassin dropped to her knees, overwhelmed. And Riku, he sank to the ground, exhausted, arms covered in flour and spice, face wet with tears. The pot behind him steamed quietly. The last bowl sat untouched. But the galaxy was full. Epilogue. 1 year later, the ruins of Tokyo had changed. The food stall still stood, but now it was surrounded by trees, laughter, and life. The Earth was healing. Aliens and humans worked side by side. No more war. No more conquest. And at the center of it all, Riku's, etched on a wooden sign, still swinging in the wind. Children from 10 planets ran past it, waving. Diplomats arrived not to talk but to eat. No one wore crowns here. No one demanded special service. All waited in line. Dot, and behind the counter, still wearing that old apron, stood Riku Tanaka, the cook who fed queens, healed empires, and stopped a war. When asked how he did it, he always gave the same answer. It wasn't me, it was the food, and maybe the memory hiding inside it.